Mr. Vine,
Here.
Ms. Dial,
Here.
Ms. Tynes,
Here.
Mr. Cunningham,
Here.
and Mr. Pollock.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. We also need approval of the minute. Approval of the agenda.
Can we make sure our mics are on as well, please?
Oh, our mics are off, I'm sorry. Gotcha. Let's see.
Thank you.
Okay. Madam Chair, I move that we approve the agenda as written.
Okay, we have a motion to do I hear a second?
Second.
It has been motion and second that we approve the agenda as written.
Okay. And verbal, Mr. Vines,
Yay.
Ms. Dial. Yay. Ms. Tynes.
Yay.
Mr. Cunningham.
Yay.
And Mr. Pollock.
Yay.
Thank you.
All right, the agenda is approved. The vote is 5-5. Thank you. Okay. This morning, I would like to welcome everyone here, all of the board members, as well as the staff that's here and any visitors. Last meeting we had last Thursday, our regular meeting, Mrs. Martha Jackson passed all of the board members a package. Of course, we didn't get an opportunity to open the package until we, I guess, after the meeting. But the information that she had included in the package was something that I would like to share with you all today. Mrs. Jackson shared some history with us of all of the African-American board members that have served on White County Schools Board. And the first one was Mr. Alton Blow. Mr. Blow served on the board for quite a few years, and Mr. Blow is no longer with us. But we would like to recognize the time and what he did for the students in White County. Secondly, we have Mr. James Henry Johnson, Reverend James Henry Johnson. And if I can recall, Mr. Johnson represented the former Newport District, which is District 4 now. And Mr. Johnson served on the board for 14 years. And we would like to thank, Mr. Johnson also has passed. We would like to thank him and remember him for his services on the board as well. Third, we have Mr. James Banks Brown, Jr. Mr. Brown served the longest on White County School Board, and he served over 30 years. I'm just going to say I'm very close to this one because he's a relative. He pretty much was the one that asked me to go forward and to run for school board. And I said, really? I said, I taught school. You think I want to run for school board? He said, I think you would be a good one. And Mr. Brown, like myself, we're from one of those families that the most important thing is to go off and get an education, and after you get your education, to come back to your community and serve. And he definitely served in education in White County for over 30 years, and we thank him as well. We also have Mr. Alvin Wilson, and if you all know Mr. Wilson was with us up until about a few months ago. And Mr. Wilson left us after about, 7 years on the board? And we thank Mr. Wilson as well for his services on the board. And the last one, of course, is myself. I guess I made a little history along with Mr. Blow. Mr. Blow was the first African-American elected to White County. Well, during that time, they appointed it. He was appointed to White County School Board. And I was the first female African-American elected to White County School Board. So we would like to thank all of those individuals that played a major role in White County schools. There are a couple other people I would like to mention during this time too. They did not serve on the school board, but indirectly they helped the school board, and that is Mr. Henry Bradby. And Mr. Bradby is no longer with us, but we thank him for all of his service. And we also thank Mr. Rudolph Jefferson, who is with us now. They served on the Board of Supervisors and Mr. Bradby served for years in White County. And we would like to thank them as well. Okay. At this time, we will have Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence by Mr. Cunningham.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Moment of silence. Thank you.
Okay, we're on item number 6 is the business. We're going to start with Dr. Thornton or
Yes.
his staff.
Yes, so before Steve comes up, Madam Chair, I brought some supplemental items just for you to look at, and I'm going to go over just briefly. One is what you've already seen at the last meeting. It's the agreement for the resource officer, so that today be some discussion on that. Next is a teacher salary guide proposal, and this we posted online to inform teachers of what our proposal is. So if you can, if you look at the scales, the example was step 10. So where step 10 this year is at 48,886. A teacher at that step would go down for the year's experience to step 11 next year, and that would be 53,137 for an 8.7% increase. So if you look at the percent increase on the right, that's an average 6.6% increase for teachers, and you know the governor is asking for, or funding the 5% each year. We've come up with the 6.6 to try to stay competitive. We really looked at Suffolk scale
Right.
to try to get up to that, which is why we did the 6.6. And just so you know, too, if you look at the 22-23 scale, if you go from step to step, like from step 0 to 1, 7 to 8, we try to keep those at around 1.5 to 2% increase, because there are some years where you may not have a proposed increase like 5%, but we always want to give them their year's experience. So what we try to do going down vertically is at least give like a 1.5, 2% raise, and that's like a cost of living, if you can't give more than that in any year. And sometimes that happens. The scale stays the same year to year. This year, because of 5%, the scale changes. So we add in that 1.5 to 2, plus we adjusted these numbers to get where we are, if that makes
And the
sense.
step is a year?
Yes.
Okay.
And really, the only scale that's exactly the years is a teacher scale. And because as teachers come and go from different divisions, you want to make sure they're getting their year's experience, whether they worked with us or somewhere else. And next, I put in the administrative pay scale. There's always a lot of questions on this, and I think I alluded to this a little before. But if you look at a teacher who may make 65, 70,000 before they become like an assistant principal, they're working 10 months. They get paid for 12 months, but their check is cut. And so if you actually take someone who makes like 70 grand and add 2 more months, they're really at 84. And then if you move from 84 to like 96 as a principal, that's only like a 13% increase. So as they get more responsibility, anytime you get more responsibility, it's anywhere in there 15 to 20% in the business world and other places. So, and this is not out of line from where other divisions and the research we've done where they are, where we're competing to get these individuals. Then if you look at, so say you're a principal making, and these are the minimum, and we also have a formula to give them the year's experience as a teacher and if they've been an administrator before. So if you jump from, say, high school principal to a director, the 96.6 to 105, that's only a 10% increase. You're moving up the ladder, and it's only a 10% increase. If you move from 105 to the new position we put like assistant superintendent of admin finance to 125, that's a 19% increase. So nothing on this is out of line or out of the norms of the business world and the educational world. So I just wanted to point out that, because that comes up a lot. Is there any questions on that, or?
No, that's in line with what you and I had talked about previously, so.
And this next one, little packet, this is some of Cheryl's working papers and our working papers as you develop a budget. And I just wanted to point out some of the things that go into this. So if you look at, the first sheet is Carrollton, and you see the current, and then over on the right, you only see numbers there for a few. That means the rest of the numbers stayed the same. But if you look at teacher grade 1, went from 6 teachers to 7. And then if you go down and look at kindergarten, there's only 6 teachers there now. So you may say, well, why are we planning for 7 next year in first grade at Carrollton? And that is from the ADM report, which we're going to have for you later. And that breaks it down by grade. So we see how many kids are in grade. Sometimes there's bubble classes and classes that are bigger than others along the way. But to keep our per pupil ratios in line, you need another teacher there. But also, if you look at grade 1 and going down to grade 2, instead of 7 next year, we only need 6, because that class really hasn't changed in numbers this year. And so we carefully go through all of that to determine how many teachers we need in each school, and that may determine maybe Hardy needs more, and we shift over there.
Okay.
And again, we try to keep this flexible. So if you look down at the bottom, in the handwritten notes, it says 1 counselor. And you saw that in your budget the other day. Up top, it only says 1 counselor. They actually have 1.5 right now. They share one between Hardy and Carrollton. And so when we add another counselor, that will be split. They'll each have 2 next year.
Okay.
And
Okay,
so that was something that we worked out with looking at the SOQs and looking at mental health. And that's why that hasn't even been updated. That's why you see it in handwriting down here. That was updated right before we were ready to present.
That's what I wanted to ask you. You said mental health. The new counselors that you're bringing on, they're certified in counseling and mental health?
No, they'll
They're
be
just
certified
educational.
school counselor.
Okay. All right.
Do you want to speak to that at all, Cheryl? Or?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
The school counselor, when we get further in, I want to discuss something about the
Okay.
mental health again,
Okay.
part of it.
Very good. And the other thing you might notice down here, it says +2 general ed. We have instructed our principals, and these are 2 extra positions. We normally budget some extra positions because we don't know what's going to happen when they come in. And more than ever, I'm telling them to advertise and hire these positions because the flux of people coming and going that we've seen over the last couple of years because of the pandemic, people are making up their mind now, but then something happens in their family, they're making up their mind the last second. And we have an agreement in Region 2, we're not going to steal each other's teachers after June 30th. So we're trying to hire and make sure we have the appropriate staff in place and that we're not short. And we've been short the last couple of years, and that increases class size. It creates problems. So the only time you can take a teacher or a person from another school district after June 30th is if it's a promotion for that individual. We never want to hold someone back from growing their career.
Right.
So we have to keep that in mind while we hire these teachers. And so that gives you all of the different schools.
Very good.
And that's
Okay, well, since you
all.
mentioned the counselor part,
Uh-huh.
maybe I've mentioned that to you earlier, back, I guess, when we were in the pandemic and was trying to bring them back to in-person, about maybe if we could partner with some regional mental health agencies and see if we could get some counselors in for students as well as staff. And I'm thinking that there's still a need for that because a lot of the issues that I'm hearing and students are reaching out for help, okay, and they don't know where to go. And if we don't supply them with the staff that they need, I mean, we can't, if the staff is not certified to reach out and help these students, then, I mean, we need to do something. And we have staff as well during the daytime with everything that's going on. If they could just say, stop by someone's office and sit down and have a little quick conversation with them, if nothing else, to encourage them to continue on. Sometimes they just don't have that peace, and especially if knowing it's going to be confidential.
Can someone speak to what we do have in place as far as mental health?
Ms. Tynes, I think, good morning, you all.
Good morning.
And I'm sorry, the whole staff is here to address certain questions from their area of expertise too. so.
Perfect, good.
So you may be thinking, years ago, and for a number of years, we had Western Tidewater partner with us, and they did a therapeutic day program where they would come into our schools and work with a number of students. Before the pandemic, that program was cut due to their funding. So we can reach back out and see if they're able to provide that again. And that was more of a counseling service as opposed to just a school guidance counselor. So we can check on that to see. Let me ask Trish.
It actually would be nice to reach back out to them, because just as we as an educational agency for state, monies have come into different agencies since the pandemic. And the mental health, lots of money is going into mental health for that reason, not just for the educational side of it, but just for the community itself. So reach back out to them, and even if the funding is not there, those agencies, they actually have sources of getting money out of Richmond,
Right.
if possible, more so than we have.
And we did check as we returned from the pandemic, and they still were not able to
Okay.
have services to provide, enough personnel to provide it. But we can double check
I
to
think
see
it's-
maybe now.
I think the issue is probably not so much the funding, the problem is the staffing with them, just like
Well,
staffing with us.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And,
Yes.
and that's right.
Yeah.
So, going forward, if they're working on a budget for the next fiscal year, maybe they would know how much staffing they need, if they need to put something in place for the local school districts.
And currently, we do have 3 school psychologists on staff.
Right.
So we added an additional one last year, so we have those 3. We also have a behavior specialist on staff too,
But-
and 2 social workers. And so we have increased our staff in the last 2-3 years to have those supports available.
We have the supports, but most of, that you just mentioned, the psychologists, the social worker and all of that, if they're tied up identifying students, during the day and they're in meetings or whatever, we need someone that's pretty much not going to be tied up in that particular sector. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Because if we pull them from one place, then what's going to happen? All right, we're going to have to delay this meeting so they can come over here to take care of this need. We need someone, pretty much, that is what they're doing, and they're not being identified to do another, for instance, working in the SPED department for those type
Right.
meetings, okay? And those are ongoing meetings every day, I'm sure. So
They are, oh yes, every day, all day long.
And I'm just gonna put it out there. I know, I'm not gonna say you have a great backlog, but if you backlog 1 day or 2 days, even the pandemic probably puts you back. Everybody's still catch-up mode. We're trying to catch up. You're not? Okay. I know you're in compliance, but what I'm saying, is constantly, you're constantly having meetings, and it's probably an everyday thing for you right now. Okay, see, this is what I'm saying. So we
Yes.
cannot pull that staff from that particular meeting to put them some
No,
other place.
right.
We need to bring on new people to identify these things that we have going on since the pandemic.
One thing that you may not know is we do have some behavioral IAs who are
Okay.
working in our schools.
Oh, that's good.
And so, right now, I think we have 4 on staff and 5, we have all 5 hired, though. I think we had a vacancy.
Well, that's good, because that was in the
Okay.
budget when I first came
year,
back
yeah.
on the board, and that was, they
Yes.
put that in the budget.
And so those individuals are under supervision of our behavior specialist, and They can work with any student who is exhibiting behavior issues where the teacher
Okay.
needs help. We can put them in a classroom, put them in different classrooms, working with various students. That has been a big help that we were able to add that.
Are they all, I think if I recall, we were really concentrating on the elementary level when we
were.
got them.
Yes.
What about middle school, high school?
I mean, we can certainly move those folks so they're not like they might be at Carsville, but it's not only Carsville. If we needed to move one, we certainly can. But
Okay.
where we saw the most extreme behaviors, it was
elementary.
without a doubt early elementary.
Okay, okay,
And sometimes that staff goes into a classroom and trains that teacher in techniques to deal with the one or two children they have.
Okay.
And then that person can move on to
On
somewhere
to
else.
something else.
So that's why we
Okay.
have 5. And I did want Cheryl to address, for adults, our employee assistance program.
okay.
If you could speak to that briefly, Cheryl.
Yes. Actually, I have two things. We've gotten guidance from, we're still waiting on guidance from VDOE, but they are also looking at, instead of the normal traditional school counselor that's coming out of college to do school counseling, they're looking at letting us license mental health counselors.
Okay.
So that's in the works and in progress, so we're still waiting on word from that, but that's also, I think, another way to address what your concerns are. We do have an employee assistance program, and it's through Optima EAP. And with the employee assistance program, and any employee do not have to be on our health insurance. Any family members living in the same household can call EAP, and they can have up to 5 counseling sessions per year per occurrence. And so it's all confidential. I do get reports. It's very underutilized. We try to promote it as best as we can. All the principals have cards and brochures that they give their employees. So it's another avenue for people who are struggling, and it's also for the household as well.
Okay, and I think you mentioned that to us before, and thank you very much, Mrs. Elliott. But, you know, mental health is still one of those areas where a lot of people are afraid to enter it, you know. I mean, they'll go to a medical doctor just like this, you know. Okay, I'm gonna stay out of school, I gotta go to the doctor. They need to start thinking the same way for mental health.
Yes.
Because we all know mental health, dental health, and the other physical health, medical health, they all coincide. And if one is off, the other two gonna be off. So you
Most
have to, and maybe we can start, you know, like, when you meet with them, or you can send brochures out. Of course, we don't do the little paper check, everything is electronic, but maybe pop it at the top of whatever you send out to your staff. You know, that those, it's still there, please use it because it's there for us to use. We're paying for this, okay?
Yep.
And maybe if you promote it like that, okay, well, I'm gonna start using this because I think I need it.
Yeah. Sometimes I think there's a stigma, and
Yeah,
people
I
are
think
just-
it's just a stigma, but if they find out, you know, hey, if you just keep putting it out there, maybe they'll go forward. Sometime if you hear it one time, and they say, okay, I'm not gonna do that because I only heard it at the beginning of the year and we were doing this, or something like that, but if they hear it every month, it's there, or every week, it won't hurt, you know, it's there for you.
Yep.
And they cannot say it wasn't offered if there was a need.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
I had a question about, there was an idea thrown out by having a dean of students to free up the guidance counselors. I don't know how many guidance counselors are at each school, but I've heard that some need more than just one guidance counselor, and that they have to do testing and all these other different things, and so someone mentioned if there was a dean of students that could do like the testing and free up the
Right.
guidance counselors to be able to do the things that they need to do. I heard that would be a good idea.
they used to have dean of students years ago,
Yeah.
but I think it was just a
So
change
what,
of names.
they were called ACCs
ACCs.
or? Yeah, so we had them, and then they weren't counting in the counts for guidance counselors to meet SOQs. And then a couple of years ago, I think the state increased the number of counselors, so we increased, which took some of that burden off. But you're right, at some of the schools, I think I talked to the guidance counselor at Smithfield Middle, we're right back to they're not being able to do 80% of their time.
Yep.
So we do need to revisit that by school. In this plan, we meet the requirements of SOQs, but that doesn't always mean we're meeting the needs of students. I think Steve showed that slide. What they say, what we need is far different than reality. So we can look at that before the next meeting on an individual school basis to see if there's that need.
And they're
And I
very,
think they were called ACCs and they,
Okay.
well, they
Yes.
did 504s.
It's, we have one full-time at Smithville High School and a part-time at Windsor High School. And they do assist with all of the testing, and they can do 504s as well. And again, it was to take the testing burden off of our counselors.
But what happens is they could be a teacher, doesn't have to be a guidance counselor.
That's right.
But then what happens, if they weren't a guidance counselor, then if we did need an extra guidance counselor, they couldn't do those
They couldn't do
services.
those services.
But then, it's like a double-edged sword. If we have a guidance counselor and they're doing that, then the next thing you know, we're treating them as a guidance counselor, but then they're drawn away to do this. So we've got to figure out a way to meet SOQs and meet the needs of the students. So we'll look at that.
okay, the dean of students, is it possible, I heard you say they do testing and all of that, is it possible, because especially on the high school and middle school level, this is where you start getting a lot of your other problems, you know, behavioral type problems. I know years ago, the dean of students would address some of those things too, instead of if the teacher had to separate a student and maybe, you know, send them to what we used to say, the office, the administrative office or something, if they could actually send them to the dean of students, and the dean of students will, you know, address the issue, talk to them, and, you know, pretty much bring them back to the setting, the classroom setting, you know, and in a positive way. Sometimes in most cases, they didn't have to go to the administrative office after, you know, the intervention with the dean of students. And it worked out. As a matter of fact, it would be nice if, I know sometime we can't, because of certain things, you can't say we're gonna have a male or a female, but if we had them available, that way the males could choose who they wanna go to and the females could too, you know, pretty much like that. Because we're finding out that a lot of our males, that's the problem with their behavior, because they don't have the role models. And you know, it's very hard to get male teachers in schools. And most of the time when they come, they move up to central offices. That's their goal, and we understand that reason too. I'm finished. But that was Mrs. Dow, I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's a good idea. And especially if we could have them, right now you said you have a part-time one in one's high school, maybe they need a full-time one as well. And we can get, also get a full-time one for each of the middle schools. So that would be 3.
All right, so we'll look at those numbers and
Right,
address that.
Okay.
And put that in the next budget proposal.
right, if we can't get it, even if we can't get it this year, we could work towards that, you know, if we just add one a year until we get them in place,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. All right. So at this point, you guys could ask random questions, you could go through the book. Steve is available for the actual, it's quite a few pages.
Yeah.
We really wanted to break it down. Traditionally, what we've done is about 19 to 20 pages. So what you'd see in the past is like instructional salaries. That includes your teachers, your guidance counselors, your media specialists. And you see, we've broken this down pretty much by school, and then by your instructional, your central office, and then your admin, attendance, and health. People get confused at that title because it says admin. The only admin in there are like myself, Cheryl. It's not your administrators that have to do with instruction. They're all in the instructional category. And health is your nurses, et cetera, so. So do you have any questions in the instructional category?
I'm looking to see if I made notes there.
The only question I had that was included, I was glad you did, that's already included in, that was CTE program, because I knew we had to cut it out for previous year out of the budget, but it's back in there. That was the assistant for the culinary arts program.
Yes.
Yes, and I think that's already been taken care of, you've already hired, and
That's a big need.
right, it was a big need. And looking, the day we went on the tour of the CTE programs, I was wondering if there were other situations maybe that you could have maybe a shared assistant in some of the programs, especially like the welding and engineering, if needed, especially if the students are working individually and other, away from the teacher, because I saw there were some locations in the building in which they could do that. And maybe that person could rotate between the different departments. Because it's really a lot of machinery in there, and I would, keep them safe and somebody watching when the instructor is over here, maybe somebody else could have a watchful eye over here to make sure, no one is goofing off, horse playing, what they call. I'm just saying, okay, they didn't ask for one, but I just wanted to put it in for safety reasons, and if you all feel that way about it, where Dr. Cowles is not here with us today.
Sometimes it depends on the staffing.
Staffing, okay.
As you guys visited, I know when you visited the farm.
Right.
uh,
They had an assistant.
Yeah, well, they had
It was a
the farm
student.
manager, but what I was gonna say, students kind of live up to your
Yep.
expectations.
Right,
Whether
they
you're a
do, they
regular
do.
classroom teacher,
They were doing,
like that farm, they are busy doing their work.
they were busy doing what they needed to
They're not
do.
busy trying to hide
They have an
because,
assistant.
and the difference,
They do.
is,
Yeah.
they love the
Right.
ag.
Right.
Or they love the welding, so they're very on task. I think in the past, CTE, a lot of times, we didn't have any place for you, so you kind of got stuck into a class. And that still happens some,
Okay.
like with arts or music sometimes. But for the most part, these students wanted it.
Yep.
But sometimes they do get, we get a student that gets in there and they really don't want to be there, and they could become.
Okay.
Mike, you want to speak? to that?
Just real quick, I think that's a great point, Mrs. Tynes, and one of the things I would remind the board, and I know you all know, but for the community as well, is for our CTE programs, especially the very hands-on programs like a welding, building trades, so on and so forth, that you've all actually just toured again recently, we do have a cap there on the attendance, the rosters in those as 20. And that is set by the state for the reasons you're mentioning. Because of the nature of the programs, we want to make sure we have small class size. But certainly, Dr. Kale works very closely with those instructors. That's how Chef Horn brought forward the concept
Right.
of the IA. And so we will continue to work closely with them, listen to them, and make sure that those programs are operating as safely as possible. But that 20-to-1 does certainly help us in that area as well.
It was another, now, this is CTE program with the day of observation, building and trades, one's elementary. I'm sure when they started the program, the space was perfect, but just observation there that day and the things that they're doing, and maybe it's just this particular project because they said they were actually building a room, a restroom, bathroom, and they were doing the whole thing. But Mr. Cunningham was with me that day. It's not a lot of movement in that room. Is there, we
just
need
the
to put
space.
some, they need more space. Is it any way you can expand? Do something, maybe you could lose, maybe, I don't know if there was a room adjacent to it, you can open up to give them more space because they need more space. They actually need to be working out a room of this size for what they're doing now.
Well, one of the things they do too, though, is if you remember those doors that open,
Okay,
and there's a cover. So it's, at certain times of year, those doors open and they're working out there as well.
outdoors, okay.
But.
In the
yeah,
wintertime, that's, well, it was cold the other day and they were all on the inside and I'm like, this is not a whole lot of space because even we were trying to move out their way, moving around, was really no space for us. So we just actually, okay, we're in their way, let's leave, okay?
Before, they had that little room that I
Yep.
showed you.
Okay,
Yep, even
and-
smaller.
And the program was dying.
Uh-huh.
And we hired a Class A contractor, and he's regenerating the program.
Right.
So yes, it's
So,
expanding.
it's
and
expanding,
it's a
so
good
maybe
thing.
the
It's
space
expanding.
needs, yes, it's a good thing and I'm glad. But we need to expand this space as well because if the program is expanded, I'm not saying we have to have a huge space, but just a little more space for them to work and maneuver, because they were having a hard time just trying to move a little bit in there,
We
you
had to
know?
get out of the way.
We had to get on out of the way.
But the day we were there, it was actually raining. So
Right.
that's another reason why they were inside
Right.
like that. If it hadn't been raining, I mean, building trades, that's my specialty,
Right.
industrial arts education. You gotta get used to working outside in the weather. But with the rain, it becomes a safety issue, and that was why the doors were closed that day. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, and you know, you have portable heaters and everything you set up, so, I mean, if they're gonna be in the field, they gotta be used to working in those conditions. But the day we were there with the rain and everything, that's why everything was pushed inside.
Okay, well, you all are the experts. If you all think the space
I don't know
is
about an
sufficient-
expert, but
If you think the space is sufficient, you know,
Well,
I mean,
you always
I'm
can
fine
use more
because I'm
space.
not an expert
Yeah.
there.
Oh, yeah.
And I was just observing the program that day, and I noticed how they were maneuvering it, and quite a few kids were in there, but they
Right.
were all on task, and you didn't have any space, because they were using up.
No, I think you make a very good point, because as I understand it, we're pretty much maxed out on the number of students in the CTE program. So we could actually grow it and still be
There you go.
maxed out. Therefore, we would need that space.
Yep. Yep.
And so maybe we should develop some type of 5-year plan to start growing the CTE program, you know, and if we can get some money from the state under the lab school process, that would make it even easier.
And we do need to think, like I said, what serves the needs of our students?
Yeah.
Because again, if you look at what the SOQs are for CT for all of Wight County, it's very few instructors. We well surpass that, but it's driven by what our students
What's their
want,
needs.
and not just what they want. We did an extensive survey and reached out to our business partners. What are jobs they can go into? And one was the healthcare industry, which I know is a huge shortage,
Yep.
and nursing and all these other areas.
Exactly.
With the welding in this area, welding in another part of the state, maybe a horrible
Yeah.
program, but
Yeah,
for here,
yeah.
it's an excellent program.
Program.
Absolutely.
We're turning out 25 kids a year certified. So if we had another instructor, but that drives the space too, like welding. We got $350,000 from Lee Bear to set up that shop.
Yep.
So to expand that would be very expensive
Right.
to add another instructor, but we could probably fill it. So we do probably need to look
yeah.
at like a 5-year plan. Where are we growing and what are our students, doing some student surveys and parent surveys, because parents help guide their children.
Oh, yeah.
And we're so close to, of course, the water, all the ports here, major ports. We've got major port right here, Hampton Roads. And I mentioned to you the other day after going on the tour, I saw the forklift there in the classroom. And I said, it would be nice if we could get someone to come in as an instructor, instruct the students in that area as well, and get their certifications, because there's definitely a need for that with the warehouses and the ports and everything else around us.
That was the
I mean,
welding.
but it was right, it was in the
In the
welding.
welding.
But if the equipment is there, why not use it, you know, and for more certifications?
So that's where we need to reach out to, like a business partner.
Amazon.
Because one of
Yep.
the things when we
Amazon has a
redid
program
the
for
CT
that.
building in Smithfield was global logistics. I know Mike
Okay.
and his team.
Yep.
Right.
And
Yep.
because we have the warehouse behind Hope Church, we were hoping to possibly use that to warehouse our own materials and work with a book company, I think it was at the time, and learn how to use that. We had like one student sign up because they don't know.
No.
They don't
So
understand.
until we have a
understand.
partner and we can maybe bring students and start talking about how much money you can earn, and so that's,
Yeah.
well, those are like first steps we need to do to get something
Right.
like that moving. But we have a space right now. We rent that warehouse.
Yep.
And we have warehouses right here in the county, up in the
Oh,
Winslow
yeah.
area.
Yeah.
The park, the industrial parks all around us, over in Suffolk, everywhere. And our students can actually be getting jobs now. If they're of age, they could just get a
Yeah.
summer job right now between, 12th grade and graduation or whatever. Weekends, they can, work weekends, be earning money towards college if they want to further their education. The other see, that tool was fantastic, okay? And we went to the Little Sprouts class, and I mentioned that to
I
you,
love that.
expanding that to the other end of the county. It's so, I saw how successful it was here and Windsor Elementary, where it's located. If we could actually, well, in the future, especially now that we are building the new Hardy Elementary, and hopefully continue with the West Side Middle as well, we will have some space, if necessary, where we could, offer that. And if we could start thinking about that now, because, I guess it's gonna take a little bit to put it in place, yeah,
We probably ought to start being creative with that and expanding it,
right,
and maybe start talking to students and parents and saying, if you go through that, because that's like teacher for tomorrow
Right,
too. We grow our own teachers.
teachers,
And then say, if you go off to Old Dominion or somewhere and get a teacher, we'll hire you when you graduate.
Yep.
right,
And make some agreements. That might be something, we've got to do something with the teacher shortage. And-
Oh, yeah.
And I know we'd love, I think our children should be free to grow and do whatever they
That's right.
want in life, but it'd be nice to have opportunities back
Things.
at home for them. And so maybe looking at that as an incentive for retention and trying to get some homegrown teachers here.
okay. Thank you.
No, I was just gonna say, I definitely on the healthcare side, there's a lot of jobs that people don't really know that they're out there. Like, I didn't know about PA until later on in my career, but, anywhere from nuclear medicine to ultrasound techs, from, I was just telling my niece about, TCC has a program for ultrasounds, teletechs, yeah, putting those things, I don't mind putting some things on paper for things that esthetician, healthcare is more than just esthetician, that's 8 months to, you only have to have a certain amount of hours, that's skincare and all kinds of other things, so it's more expanded than just, ND, PA, and NP. I know that EVMS has a lot of partnership with ODU and their house grown, they like a lot of people in their community that they accept from their community, so.
And we could definitely partner with one of those universities very easily, without any cost to us. And the state is providing universities money to partner with high schools on stuff like that, to partner with K through 12.
I do have a question with the budget. It's not really a large concern. It's the substitute services. I guess that was at the Carrollton classrooms.
Know what page
Okay,
you're on?
right.
Or the page, no, page 2 of 30. So it's near the front of the book. And it's right under where it says Carrollton Classroom. It says substitute services. Right now, the current is 20,000, but it's gonna go up to 55. I was just wondering if someone wanted to explain it.
Yeah, you want to talk to that, Steve?
Good morning.
Good morning.
What you'll see throughout the instructional section, the first 30 pages, you'll see substitute lines scattered throughout the entire, and we're required to break them out by school, by
Okay.
department. And you happen to see, I think, the first one.
Okay,
But the question of the 55 is really, where did the 20,000 come from?
okay.
That 20,000 for this current year, and does everyone see where we're at? It's really the top of
Right.
page 2.
Yep.
I was new to the division. We were looking at costs, and I based that 20,000 on costs that we were realizing last year. Well, last year, we didn't need a lot of subs.
There
So
you
I
go.
think I missed that mark, or I undershot that mark, because this year we are certainly
Needed a
in
lot.
need of a lot of substitutes.
Okay.
So my justification for the 55 is that's really getting us back to pre-pandemic levels, if you want to
Okay,
call it that.
okay,
And you'll see increases throughout for substitute costs.
okay.
We can't tell you next year how many teachers will call in sick, how many subs we'll need, but we do believe that 55 is a more realistic number.
Yeah,
Very good.
I see where Carsville is a little more realistic too, because you only went up, not a lot. Yeah, it's like about 14,000. current 14,670, but next year you proposed a budget of 1,400. So it's gonna go down.
Well, that's our projection.
Right, that's your
Yes.
projection, right?
Yes.
Propo-
Yeah, there's costs, we can't guarantee any.
I can understand.
Payroll, we lock in, but utilities, substitute costs,
Right,
those are
those factors.
estimates, yes.
That's all, I was just wondering, thank you.
Well,
Mr.
question
Cunningham?
on substitutes, how does Isle of Wight, how do they get their substitutes? Are they like internal or are they contracted out substitutes?
Contracted.
Yeah, that's you.
Because I was a substitute, but I was a contracted substitute in Isle of Wight. So what's going on now
Well,
with
I
that?
think that's exactly it, yes.
For probably the last, since Dr. Thornton has been here, so the last 7 years, we have outsourced our substitute teacher pool. It's a company called ESS. It used to be called Source for Teachers,
Yep.
and now they're called ESS. And so they do the training, they bring in their people, and then everything is electronic. The sub goes in and sees the absences and can do it a month in advance and pick the days they want to
Yep.
work. It freed up a lot in-house. It was a lot with the 4-person HR staff. It was a lot to staff substitute teachers, so it's helped us quite a bit. We'd probably need
Okay.
another, at least half person if we brought it back in-house.
Yep, yeah.
Does that answer?
Yeah, that answers that one, because yeah, I mean, we're talking Isle of Wight, but does Surrey have their own internal
They
substitutes?
do. Right now in this area, it's us in Hampton City Schools use ESS. Most of the other divisions are large enough. Surrey, I believe, does theirs all in-house, but most of the other larger divisions, they have someone that just does substitute teachers. So Newport News used to be with ESS, and they went back and they're doing it in-house now.
Yeah, because, it's competition across the board. So, I mean, like with me, I could substitute anywhere, but I chose Isle of Wight, of
Right.
course, less of a drive. But if we're talking about Surrey, and Surrey's paying more money, that could be an issue for us trying to get our substitutes. And I mean, it might be a couple of miles more to drive, but if you're making $5 more an hour,
You did, just a couple of months ago, we did raise our rates for our substitute teachers. It was voted on because we did have to realize we had to be more competitive.
Oh, yeah,
We've been
yeah.
having the same rates that we had 7 years ago that we were paying
Yeah,
our subs, and so
I
we
know.
have increased that. We haven't, we haven't seen the results yet because we're still, they're still trying to, they lost a lot of substitutes with the pandemic, and
I
so
know.
they're still trying to recruit. And we have more trouble recruiting. They're based out of Newport News and Hampton, and we have more trouble recruiting for the Carsville, Windsor end. But they do heavily come and they do recruiting sessions and put signs up and things like that. So they're working steadily.
okay, thank you.
Ms. Elliott, while you're here, I have a quick question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. This is just, going forward, just in your position, trying to recruit and hire people to fill this staff. Just to say, here it is, July 1, we're getting ready to go in our fiscal year, and you all are really you're busy now trying to hire for the next fiscal year. But here is July 1, and you find out, hey, I got about 25, 30 instructional positions here. I cannot get them filled. Have we ever thought about, as a school district, bringing back maybe some of our instructors? I know we do it with, those within 5 years, they can, come back and do things for the county, but those that are past the 5-year period, having some of them to come back and not just anyone that's certified, and come back and maybe work part-time for us, because a lot of them are interested. I've heard interest. This is what's going on in some of our neighboring school districts, where they are hiring the retirees, and they are coming back, like, I'll work in the morning, and then some say, I'll work in the evening. And if we could do it that way, do you see that being feasible for Isle of Wight County?
I think with the situation that the country's in right now with teacher shortages, anything is feasible. So it's something we could definitely look into.
Thank you,
We're very
Ms.
fortunate in that we do have a lot of our retirees that actually work for ESS. So that's been helpful too, because they can kind of come in when they want and then
Yep.
go home when they want. So
But see, this is why I was thinking of part-time, because the reason I said that, I met someone a couple of weeks ago, and had moved down here from up north, New York or someplace like that, and a teacher. And once she got here, she found out she really loved the small town living, but she wanted to stay active. So Isle of Wight County did not have the part-time at the time, so she's driving to Newport News. But she said she wished she could do that in Isle of Wight County, because she won't have that commute and the traffic. She doesn't mind the commute, but it's the traffic that's right now, especially if she, in the afternoon or something like that. So I was wondering if we could find staffing like that and, somebody, do it in the morning and then somebody come in the, afternoon and work with people. Won't be a whole lot, but it'll fill some of that staffing.
Send her my way and we
That'd be
will.
great. I was gonna say, you got a name and phone number, give it
I'll
to
give it to
Sarah.
you. I will give
We'll
it to
cut
you.
her drive
Great.
down.
Okay.
I gotta write
Okay.
that down, too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I had a question, on project graduation. What is that? Who can talk? Go ahead.
Never mind.
Oh.
I got you.
What is that? Because,
So we get a small sum of money. It's not a lot. It used to be a lot. It's been cut down greatly in recent years. But it's basically for our high schools to try to recover credit for kids to graduate on time.
Okay.
So we could do things like paying teachers to work extra beyond like contract hours to sub with the students, provide remediation with the students, providing the teachers money to work during their planning, to tutor students. You can do Saturday programs. It's really open. You could do summer programs, and we've done a little bit of everything over the years, but the money has been cut tremendously, so we don't have a lot of money. We used to do it during the summer.
Okay.
We don't have the funds to really do a big project graduation this summer, so typically we do it during the school year.
Well,
Okay.
we might now, though. Well, what page is that on?
1430 for West Side.
yeah,
14.
for what, yep,
You're way up there.
yeah, West Side Elementary.
Page 14 of 30.
Yeah, 3/4 of the way down.
This is random, but why does Smithfield not graduate like all the other, like Hampton City and Newport News, in a bigger facility that people can come versus like either outside or in the gymnasium? Like,
We
I
do.
don't.
We do it Liberty.
We do,
right?
we're going to
As
Liberty.
of last year, we moved to Liberty.
Yeah.
We moved to
So that will
Liberty.
continue at Liberty University?
Yes.
We have Liberty booked for this year, and we are in the process of booking
Next year.
Liberty for 2023.
Thank you.
Church.
Yeah.
Thank you, because we asked for that years ago.
Oh, yes,
We were
ma'am,
told
I
it wasn't gonna work,
remember.
It was
remember?
cool,
I remember.
And it
comfortable.
worked.
Well, and you keep in mind, a lot of the Smithfield, they really felt tied to graduating on
I know,
campus.
that's under.
But everyone, overwhelmingly, people
Yeah.
loved Liberty last year and being able to sit and be cool and see everything. It was wonderful.
And after the pandemic being away, they were just glad to be anywhere
Yeah,
together.
it was very
And-
successful.
And we did not have
question.
any issues whatsoever.
They're gonna love
Everyone came with their mask on.
Well, because I'm gonna have to go to one this year. I'm like, please, I
Yes,
hope this
ma'am.
is not at the gym.
You will
because
be
this is
cool
not gonna
and
be
comfortable.
good.
I
Okay.
promise you,
It's
it'll
a
be
lot of-
fabulous.
it's lots of space.
So I do want to bring up something that's not in the budget yet.
Uh-huh.
But Susan and her staff applied for some more ESSER funds that had to deal with remediation recovery after school.
Okay.
And there was only, I think you guys heard that at one of the trainings, there was only a limited pot of money.
Yeah.
Well, we actually received, I think it was just over $500,000.
Almost 500 for our recovery, so for our unfinished learning recovery, and then a little over about 150,000 for summer school for elementary.
Right, now, we asked for well over $1 million.
Or
so-
before and after school, sorry, it wasn't summer school, that one, no.
Right, before
It
and
was before and
after,
after school,
right.
sorry.
So we have, they did an outstanding job to get that amount of funds from the smaller pot. But we have to reapply now because we got less. So we have to redo our grant. So we're not sure when we'll get that, but then we'll have to add that in as a federal side and appropriate it. But that's a great thing that can be used at high school for recovery, middle school, elementary, so.
So this is to get us
again,
back on track, get the
Yes.
kids back where they need to be. Is there any way we can publicize that? Because that is a big question in the community right
we
now.
just did.
What are we,
There you go.
what are we doing
Yeah.
to get the kids back on track? I think this is great.
But
We're
that is a
already
good
doing,
question,
a-
John, so one thing I do want to say, so some of the ESSER three money that you guys saw,
Yeah.
that carries over into next year, the 2.5 million, it's designated, but that's not locked in. And the reason is, we want to see, where are we as we go through
Right.
the spring? Where are the needs?
Yep.
So that we target that money.
Perfect.
So we may have to rethink what we originally planned for that money.
Mhm.
And this helps that we have some before and after school money. But within the school day, where can we target that money for
Right.
remediation? So I don't think we have an exact plan now. Like last year was the AIDS, and that didn't work out that well. We'll see. But they'll be investigating that using data,
Okay, no,
and
this,
making that
this,
decision.
this is really, really
Good
good.
point.
What about,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, John, you still?
No, you're good.
Okay. What are we doing about lack of resources as far as, obviously, the internet is one of the biggest things in the county. Are we working with different, like, now that we're building, like, Verizon or Cox or whoever to come out, other than, I don't have nothing against Spectrum or
We
whoever,
don't have
but,
Cox over here, we wish.
but I mean, yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
That guy will answer that.
Actually, the county applied for and won a very large VATI grant
Yeah.
earlier this year. And that's going to add a lot of homes and a large subsection of the county to charter, as well as I believe there's some PCG stuff coming in from the north side. So I'm not sure the entire timeline. Don Robertson at the county is really the one who runs all that sort of stuff, but I know he told me about it. I can pull some information for you if you'd like, though.
No, I do have, why are we stuck on charter? Is that the only thing that we can get is charter? He's shaking his head. He's like-
City on
That's
it.
all.
Until
City owns
when?
it
Like,
big.
is
Cox
that
has
gonna be
not come across the
forever?
water
Like,
Um,
Verizon, I mean, we already have, like, Carrollton has Verizon, so I
So
mean,
the
like.
VATI grant required a corporate partner.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe Charter was the one that was chosen for that corporate
Right.
partnership.
Understand they're the only ones that applied.
Yeah,
That is also quite possible, but I don't want to speak out of turn.
Well,
yeah.
well, Verizon has applied for that grant also, and what Charter doesn't do in the rural area, on the spectrum now, some of the rural areas, they don't have cables pooled there. So what we would have to do is, probably the school district is give them an incentive to a lot of rural areas that don't have cable pooled there.
And that's what the VATI grant is
Yeah.
doing. That's from the state, and that was a pretty significant, it was a partnership with Southampton and Suffolk
Suffolk.
and Isle of
Isle of
Wight.
Wight.
So it's a very significant award.
I think Surrey County was awarded as well. this year.
Surrey is with PCG
That was a
Electric.
separate grant, but they were
Put into
also
that.
awarded,
The
yes.
Jeep,
The,
we might be, that might
That-
satisfy.
that was a concern.
Right.
And if you drive around the county right now, you'll probably see Spectrum trucks all over the place doing surveys. so.
We're just trying to get files. It's so close to us. I mean, it's in the county, but you have to be on one of those major thoroughfares to get it. And majority of the homes are just off that, okay? It's just like you have Main Street, I'm gonna use Smithfield because that's where I live. Main Street, Church Street, you can get files. But any little place off it, no, where majority of the homes are.
You can get it, but you gotta pay.
No, we can't get it.
That,
They tell you it's not.
If you pay, they would run the line to your house if you pay.
I know someone who paid like the $15,000.
That's not cheap.
I mean, but who has $15,000?
I don't. I
No,
work
the
at-
average person don't. I mean, you have to be a millionaire to do something like that. Yeah, we could get anything we want if we're millionaires, billionaires. Yeah, it's not a problem. But I'm talking about for the majority of the citizens and the students, because the files we all know is like makes it much better.
Did you want me to, I can send some information that you can.
Well, I sent you.
just on
We
the
did.
VATI
We
grant?
sent you last year. Well, we'll do it again if you want to do it and see what to tell you this year.
Okay.
Okay, I appreciate it, Mr. Cooper. Right. I mean, maybe if they say, okay, this man comes every year and asks us that same question, we're gonna do something
So what
about
would
it.
it take to get Verizon?
To speak to the FiOS issues in our area, Verizon bases on the population per street.
Right.
Verizon's in it to make money. Repeaters and substations need to be put in order to multiply the signal to get it down your street. If you don't have enough houses on 603, then Verizon's gonna take a survey and say, hey, well, there's not enough homes living down there to put this substation in to bring FiOS down your street. So this is what they look at, the size of the neighborhood, the demographics of the area, and if it's more feasible for them to make money. Charter and Spectrum, a smaller company, they're more susceptible to do it because, they want to keep a lock on this area, so
They're not good with it.
I know, but you're more likely to get better results from Charter than you are from Verizon.
I think we get a better result if we pull together. We can get it with Verizon because,
He was like, no.
I'm telling you.
White County is growing, and it's not going to just stop the growth.
Right.
And Verizon is going to have to say, hey, this place is growing. Eventually, it's going to be merged together with the Hampton Roads City. We still probably be a county, but it will be merged like the cities, okay? Suffolk and, Newfoundland News always going to have their James River to separate us. But
And I used to work for Verizon. The reason Verizon goes through major trunks, like major streets, because it reaches major cities.
Right.
So it's coming through Windsor to get somewhere else. It's going through Smithfield to get somewhere else.
Right.
You know, so we're growing, but we have not grown to that size yet.
To where they want to come. It's like,
They wanna
it's sort
come
of
in
like the Chick-fil-A not
yeah,
coming here
and-
until
and
we get
pop 'em.
100,000 people. I got you. It's Chick-fil-A will not come until we get 100,000 citizens, okay? Verizon is the same way.
And the
So
award
we can
was to
move on
Verizon,
from that. Thank you, Mr. Vines. I see, I like the experts, okay? So we have the technology over here, we got the medical expert, and we got all of the military we need.
Now, we always need more military.
Thank you very much.
But-
Okay. We'll get back to our direct budget.
Yeah, looking at 17, page 17 of 30, the Smithfield High School, that's CTE really. I'm looking at the instructional materials, culinary arts. That looks like the highest amount of money for the current budget, and it doesn't change, but 16.5, what, I mean, what's going on? Are they buying new equipment? Are they planning on buying new equipment, or what's going on with that? Because when we toured the facility, I mean, it looked great. Is that supplies? It says instructional materials. What is that?
So that's mainly food supplies.
Okay, okay.
But that line item has been stuck because we haven't
Yeah.
been able to open. And I'll tell you, in my past experience, once you get a culinary program up and running, that number will go to zero. It will be
it's self-sufficient.
It's gonna
self-funded.
pay for
They'll
itself.
actually be earning money for the
Right.
Yeah.
school.
For the
Yeah.
school.
And so, until we get that restaurant up and running, and they're able to serve lunches, or the culinary that I had at a previous school system did a lot of pastries and pies, and
Right.
they sold
Yep.
them at all the holidays.
Yep.
They funded their whole program.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully we get to that point, and that, I think the aid in there is gonna help.
Help,
Let's get them to the fair.
Right,
yeah.
Put them at the
so,
fair,
yeah,
too.
but that, you're right, that number should be coming down as we.
Yeah.
I have a quick question for Ms. Getz. The summer program that they had last year, they offered in, I think, Windsor Elementary and maybe Windsor Middle, or was it Windsor High that they had it?
Windsor High.
I think that was with Mrs.
Carol?
Mrs. Jones. I think she was the
Oh.
coordinator of the program, and it had a couple of teachers in there. Are we gonna have that, continue that program? Because I would definitely like to see that funded, because a lot of the students that entered that program, these were the students that we would say, a teacher would say were the shy students, didn't have much to say in class, self-esteem may have been low. And that program itself brought out their self-esteem to the point, I was amazed when I went to their, I guess their graduation program of them. And they were all sitting there, and all of them saying the same thing, that they were shy, they was this, and then all of a sudden, they were like, wow, I'm ready to go out here into the world. I can be this, I can be that. Some of them was, one young man, and I told you, Dr. Thornton, he about to ready to take your place. I mean, he was dressed for the part and everything. Saw his parents not too long ago, and they were still saying they were happy what that program had done for their child. And this is what we need for, I know sometimes we can't address it during the regular school day, but if we could have students to come in for, a few weeks, 3 or 4 weeks during the summer, I think it was like a 4-week program,
Yeah, Ms. Jones ran that, and we used ESSER funds, I believe, to pay for
ESSER
that
funds.
last year.
And we can look at ESSER funds, but if that's something that's gonna continue, we may have to look at our summer school funds
Right.
and see how that fits.
And see, this is what I was wondering, because if that was through special funds that we just got one-time type things or they're gonna temporarily run out, maybe this is something going forward that we can put into our budget as an instructional thing for the summer, because it's beneficial. It definitely was beneficial to the students. I didn't get to visit the high school program, but I did, it was the middle school students that I came in on, and they were all happy, and I was just happy because I knew, I said, we have some future leaders for right here in Wight County.
Yep, we can take a look. Okay.
Thank you.
I've got a question on the assistant principal for Carsville Elementary. We've got what, two, it's on page 3.
You took us back to
We don't have one, or haven't had one in the past. And
Yes.
I'm just curious on the need for it with, it's such a
Yeah.
small school.
Yeah, so I can address that.
enrollment.
And I don't know what page the other position's on, maybe it's a similar page.
Oh, I'm sorry, it's page 4.
But, so,
Yeah, page 4.
so we have a person right now that's a instructional coach that does all of the special ed down there, the training with the teachers, that type of work down there.
Right.
And so what we want to do is not add an assistant principal, kind of eliminate that job and take that person and make them a 12-month employee. And then they can do discipline, and they can be there in the summer too. It creates a hardship planning for the summer too. A lot of planning goes in the summer to get you to the next year, and Pam's kind of there by herself. And she does work with other principals and stuff.
Okay.
But so it's not a full position. And Steve, do you know where we show the loss and then the gain? Yeah.
So what you're saying, this is actually a position,
It's
the
like
person
two-
is doing
it's
it
costing us like
anyway.
$8,000.
The person, there is a person there in body now that's doing it, but they don't have that particular title.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, that makes
So
sense.
if you look at page 5,
Okay.
a quarter of the way down, you'll see a blank on instructional salaries.
Oh, there it is.
Yes.
So that person ultimately moved over to this assistant principal spot.
Okay,
So you see it as a loss there and a gain
That
on
makes
page
sense.
4. Yeah.
thanks, Steve.
Yep.
Thanks.
There we go.
All right. So it'll be a whole lot easier if you say person. The person is in the position now, but we're just like giving them a title, new title.
That's good.
Right, so
Yeah.
it's not
We're
like
adding
we're
to their
adding, we're not
responsibilities.
like we're adding a position.
No, no.
Because that question did come up, Carsville with their enrollment is much smaller, why do they need another administrator there? But the person is there doing the job anyway. And of course, in the last 2 or 3 years, I know before the pandemic, Carsville enrollment was going up because we were getting students in from some of the other localities next door.
Right. So if you look at the other elementaries, they have their instructional coach plus their assistant.
Assistants and,
Carsville just had their instructional coach, so now we're just adding 2 more months. So they
Okay.
still don't have the same because they are smaller and,
No, that's
there's
good to
less.
go.
But I think it's a good thing.
okay.
I will tell you, Pam, the principal down there, she didn't see it
Happy.
in the PowerPoint presentation, because that's just a summary, it doesn't have everything the book does. And she contacted Susan, and it's in there, Pam. So, because it's a need down there. She
I
needs
know,
support.
and I know it's a need, especially when you only have one principal, and just like Dr. Thornton said, during the summer months, that principal is responsible for making sure everything that's going on in that building for the next school year. And then if you have someone coming in would like to, visit your school, they would have to stop, put a period there, and attend to those things too. So you actually need a second person. Like I said, it's growing. And I'm glad to see that we are growing, okay? Because when they built that school, the board that was sitting here then, as well as the Board of Supervisors, why do we need the building there? Now we know. I'm glad people had that insight into the future. Any more concerns from the members? Or are you just taking your time to go
I'm
through it?
flying through.
Okay.
I wrote my notes down. So I'm just
Same
looking
here.
down.
I can point out one,
Okay.
as you look through it on page 27 of 30 in instruction. I just want to point out that you'd see there, about a third of the way down,
Got it.
Okay,
Your administrative salaries, your assistant superintendent, your other
Yes.
professional
Yeah.
salaries,
Yep.
those are the instructional, like, central office salaries. And you'll see the reduction there of 2 positions. And, so that more than compensates the addition of the assistant soup that you'll see split in thirds. So you'll see that salary, the assistant super, finance, admin, and support. You'll see that position in admin and health, maintenance, and transportation. But you'll see that it more than offsets that.
I'm very happy with the county share of this budget.
Mm-hmm.
That's phenomenal, being able to keep it at or just below
What was that? He said the county who
what we've gotten before.
should, he said it.
The county-
John,
The county share.
The county share of the whole overall budget.
oh, okay.
okay.
I thought you said the county sheriff.
Oh, no, no, no,
I didn't hear, you said share.
Yeah, share
Okay.
of the overall budget's very good.
I have a question, on the administrative pay scale. For the BS and RN, 2 years in service at 45,000, is that a competitive salary for RN?
Yeah, so actually, like, that is a 10% increase in this budget. And we were way down, and I think we upped it, did we up it 5% 2 years ago? or-
Yeah, and my question, even with that upping it, I don't think that's real competitive for,
Yeah, come on.
Okay.
Where are you looking at?
on the administrative pay scale sheet.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Oh,
then if
you on
you,
the sheet.
right, if you
Okay.
look in the admin section though, you'll see
it.
the nurses
Because
are all about a 10% raise.
Yeah.
And just keep in mind on the school nurses, they're 10-month employees,
gonna
so
say
they
that,
don't work
right.
12 months out of the year. So when we look at comparing, we're looking at other school districts that we're comparing with, and then you can kind of calculate it out over 12 months, is this competitive with someone at Centera might make? And we found that we were pretty competitive with this. So it is a 10 months, 200-day.
Yeah, a school nurse isn't gonna make the same as an ER nurse.
Yeah, and Michael, one of the things that we are hearing from them too, some of them want to come to the school and they know they may make a little less, but they get to work controlled hours and then only the 10 months, so they look at that benefit and come.
Holidays.
Now, we have had some, to be fair though, we've had some that have come for those reasons and then said, I'm not making enough money. So we have had that.
And also for the BSN, we do offer a $1,500 stipend. So even though the BSN and the RN make the same amount of money, by having the bachelor's, they do get a stipend for that.
do you all consider LPNs also?
We have one LPN at Hardy Elementary now, so we do consider, and we have to, the state requires that as long as we have a nurse supervisor, which we do have as nurse supervisor, so we
You can do
can,
an
that allows us to
LPN.
have the LPN. Yeah,
Okay. All right.
thanks.
I'm in the next packet, page 3 of 7.
Admin, so. All right.
Yeah, and I'm looking under, school board comp. We go down to hospital medical plans, basically doubled from 7440 to 15120. Curious about that.
Page 3 of 7 in the
3-7.
admin.
3-7.
So it's the first section past
Pass the
instruction.
instruction. So you sort of like in the middle. Okay.
Probably should put a tab.
We need to put some tabs on it next
Yeah,
time.
no.
So as a reminder, on your self-insurance plan, we will, every payroll, we cut a check out of your local budget and move it over to the health fund so that we can pay our doctor's bills.
Right.
So the question becomes, well, how much will the doctor's bills be? And I did build in an increase in healthcare costs because they are on the rise. Currently, our health fund is spending the money that we're depositing in it. We're not building up much of a fund balance, which is concerning, because if people happen to get very sick, we need to have that fund balance to support that. So I did build in an increase in the rates that we charge your local budget to move over to the health fund.
Well, I
So
think,
that's not
John,
all.
I think,
Dr.
John,
Thornton.
when we went over that, you see, that's a big increase.
Yeah,
I think that was because.
because of her age.
Well, no, of the,
My age.
of the unknown of the new board
Yeah.
members and who would take what as
Okay.
well,
Okay,
and not knowing,
okay.
so, yeah.
I have a question too. Because you have already told us about your, oh,
No, you're good.
no,
Go
my
for it.
question is, okay, you've already told us about your plans as far as your retirement and all.
I have another year, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, okay. But what, I know this, but what, in this budget,
Uh-huh.
if we need to go and, searching for a replacement, we need to put something in this particular budget because next year budget would be too late. Because,
Well, my contract goes through June of 2023, so
Mm-hmm.
so my
So we're good.
salary
This
So this is
covers
fine.
that.
Yeah.
so just,
And
we
if I
will,
leave before that, my
hopefully we
salary
will
covers that.
start the search, right after, like January 2023, so we won't be rushed into it. So that will be,
The person wouldn't come on board
To
till after
July.
that.
see, this is the budget
The
for
next,
2022, 2023, okay?
Right.
I'm going ahead. I don't want us to be here in January and we did not put this in this budget. Because this is the budget going forward for 2023, am I correct?
Right. which-
That would be the
which
budget
goes
for
through
23,
June of-
24.
Right.
Okay, I got you,
that-
I
yeah,
got you.
so we're good.
So it's 2023, 2024. I just wanted to make sure, because I know that 23 was in there.
Right.
Thank you.
Um,
Did I didn't do anything bad, did I?
No, you're good.
You asked the
No,
question.
my contract runs through the end of next year.
Yeah, you're
I
good.
mean, because you told us, so,
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good.
your
Yeah,
plans.
I'm not renewing my contract. You're right.
Okay, you told us. I just want to make sure we had it in the budget to go forward.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
The $17,150 for dues and membership, is that the VSBA?
That's a combination, is that a combination of VSBA and AASA and my dues? with
Yes,
VAS?
that's
Yes,
basically, yes.
yes.
Okay. And are we members of the VSBA individually or as a group?
As a school division.
As a
As a
group.
division, okay, thank you.
Starting June, we won't be a member of the Nationals.
So some of that pays for legal services, your policy updates,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that as well.
Okay. All right, that works.
I have a question as well under the school board. I know the current budget, and I noticed for the Hardy, which I understand during that time, it depends on a board member themselves if they wanted to go for any type of training or anything. But of course, we have new board members in these places now. Would that proposed budget change pretty much to coincide with what some of the other board members have done, such as Newport, Carsville, and Smithfield? Because
Yes.
I noticed, as far as the proposed budget.
Yeah, so that's pretty much like historical data.
Okay,
Because that's within the same category, if one member wanted to go more training than another, that money can just shift between
the
those
shift,
lines.
I got you,
And
okay,
and also the line where it says professional services, it could be pulled there.
okay,
If I don't use all of my travel or professional services, it can be moved. So it's really flexible
Okay.
depending on the need. You're
So
right.
this is
Depends
pretty
on the
much-
need of
okay.
the individual, yeah.
because I'm thinking this is the first time we've had a board in years with this, this much newness in it. So they will probably want to go to more training to learn. And that could go up some, I don't want us to like run out of money and Tracy said, well, you can't go because we don't have the funds.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't think we've totally spent that money historically.
okay,
Okay,
I
all right.
think we're-
The attorney fees went up about 10 grand.
Yeah.
I saw
10
that.
grand.
that's crazy.
Yeah, legal services.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
A lot more legal questions.
I've got a question on recruiting costs.
Okay, what page?
It is 5 of 7 on the admin of attendance and health. Because we are looking at trying to find a lot of people. Is this gonna be enough money, to go out and find those folks? One of the things I'd like to,
Yeah.
like to
5
offer
of
is,
7.
if we
Just
get
2
our
pages
HR
over
folks
from
to
where
go
we
to the military retirement programs, the TAPS programs, there's plenty of folks that want to come out and be teachers and honestly don't know how and don't know where. So if we could get people to go to some of the military places, and they're mostly, a lot of them are out of state, we would probably need to increase this piece.
And I think probably next year, we will have to increase. Unfortunately, with COVID, most of our in-person job fairs are now virtual, which has dropped the cost. For
Okay.
example, there's a job in the greater Pittsburgh area, which has a lot of teaching schools. That's virtual this year, so rather than spending for airfare and then the cost of that recruitment, it's down to like $550, whereas
Right.
we pay several thousand. And so
Okay,
I
so-
definitely agree with you, and hopefully as we come out of this pandemic, we'll start having more in-person job fairs. I am going to one at ODU that's in person, but everything else so far has been virtual.
Okay,
So it has
thank
cut
you.
the cost quite a bit.
There used to be a program called Troops to Teachers.
There's still,
Yes.
still
That's
is.
the same.
I
That's
was
it.
a member of that program, and I taught at a low-income school in Newport News, Eastern Academy. And once you teach in one of those areas, they pay off all your student loans,
Right.
grants, and stuff like that. So it's very beneficial.
Like a Title I
Yeah.
school.
And are we eligible for that program?
Yeah, but I get,
We are.
we correspond to them, with them.
Good, thanks, Mike.
Mrs. Elliott, I guess in the past, have we ever had, since pandemic, post-pandemic, thought about maybe coming together and, just Wight County and holding a job fair?
We had one scheduled for March of the year the pandemic hit, and then we had to cancel it. So I think we probably could look back into that. We used to do a great one with, it was Franklin and Suffolk and Portsmouth and Isle of Wight, and then the interest just kind of fell apart. I think there was a lot of competition, and we were stealing a lot of people, and so I
Okay.
think they started, everybody's kind of doing their own now, so we could look at doing that again this spring.
If we could just do it, and, I don't know if we want to add Suffolk and all of them, depends on what they're offering. But maybe some of the smaller ones like Franklin and Surrey and Isle of Wight could come together. And you could reach out to the local universities just before they have the graduations. And they would know, what they have open, because we have a lot of universities in this area. I mean, quite a few that we can pull from. And the earlier the better, because most of the students that's graduating, they already know they want to stay in the cities. But find out what the rural area has to offer you. You can go back and live in the city. Just come work for us.
Yeah, that's what we find out when we
Yeah.
go to a lot of the job, we go to a lot of the job fairs and they hear Isle of Wight and they don't know what it is. So sometimes they say
Right.
Smithfield, and we always have a map, but,
Uh-huh.
but the younger, even at Christopher Newport, sometimes they don't connect where Isle of
So,
Wight
yeah,
is.
and that's good. So maybe if with advertise, Wight County Schools located in Smithfield and Windsor.
And usually I say it's 40-minute drive from Virginia Beach, 30
Yeah,
minutes from
on those
historic
type things,
Williamsburg.
right.
So we usually try to
Yeah.
pinpoint the key areas.
And,
Yes, and the graduation rates at the schools have really dropped too.
I know they have dropped, and it's going to continue to drop, because I think the young people that's coming out today, they have different ideas what they want to do, and we can see that in our CTE programs, okay? Yeah,
your traditional teacher education programs like Longwood University.
yes, they're gone.
JMU, those numbers, even in those places, have dropped significantly.
Yeah.
And it's a scary thought. We need to encourage young people to look at that, and
Yeah.
and hopefully Teachers for Tomorrow and exposing them at an early age will help.
This is why I'm
Oh,
thinking,
yeah.
we got a lot of retired teachers out there, bring them back if we can. If you want to do part-time days, sure, we can give you part-time in the morning, part-time in the afternoon, because we're going to have to get some certified teachers out here. We just can't pull people out here and say, oh, you can stand in front of these kids in the classroom, because you know what's going to happen.
And that, you just reminded me of something between what you and Jim had said, Denise. Professionals who are retiring and want to teach, is there a way that we can bring professionals, for instance, I've got an MBA, when I wanted to go teach, I was told, well, you gotta go to teaching school and all this other stuff for another year or two. I forget what it was.
Get certified.
Get
And I'm like,
certifications.
I'm not doing that. Is there a way we can bring professionals in to teach?
That's controlled by the state because they have to get a state licensure in order to
And
teach.
we did this year, we hired several teachers just because we had to,
Right.
especially at Smithville High School, who
Provisionals.
had degrees in biology, or had degree in math, but did not go through a teaching program.
Right.
So there's steps we have to go through to get them licensed, so they still have to take those education courses.
Yeah.
The Career Switcher program that ODU and Region offer is excellent. You can do it for a year, and you can come on and teach, and then after your second year,
Okay.
then you've got your license, so that's another option too. It's
Okay.
just people that are just, I mean, they're not driven to teach like they were, so,
Right.
but there are programs out there, and we do try to get as creative as we can.
Are any of those courses to get in order for those individuals virtual?
A lot of them, yeah, a lot of them,
Okay.
yeah, they
I
can
was
do,
just wondering. Okay,
UVA-wise,
they can do
office programs that they
virtual.
can do
Okay.
virtual, so yes.
Okay.
And is there any way that we can help people on any of the programs so that we guarantee they're gonna work for us for so many years?
That'd be something,
Have we looked at that at all
that'd be a
in the
budget.
past?
We have in the past, and one of the things that has come out of that, as people do that, you really can't hold them
Right.
to it. And so a lot of times they'll come and say they're gonna stay with you for 3 years, and they're gone after a year when someone offers them 10,000 more.
You
Yeah.
can't put it in a contract?
No.
It's hard,
We-
'cause
we've
it's gonna
tried,
turn
but
'em
our
away.
attorneys have said you really can't
Yeah.
hold them because.
And
they're
it would turn them
grown.
away
Okay.
too, John.
Okay.
Because it's hard, especially when you have I mean, the population has dwindled down as
Right.
far as teachers,
Yeah.
and they know they have a choice. And if we put in our contract where you have to stay here so many years, it's gonna run them away, because they don't wanna be confined to, hey, what if I change my mind? And, anything in their life could change too.
Sure.
Sometime when they come into teaching right out of college, they're coming to us single. A lot of times, after about 1 or 2 years in, they decide to change that lifestyle and go off, get married or something.
Right.
And they don't want to be confined here if they need to relocate some other place.
Okay.
Especially living in a military area.
Yeah.
We have a
Yeah.
lot of military people coming in too.
Certainly.
And I think we got, Dr. Thornton mentioned earlier, we have regional agreements, like we hire a teacher, other regions not gonna steal them, they're not gonna be able to move unless they
Right.
move out of the state somewhere like that.
Right.
So we may be pretty well protected in
Right.
that anyway, if we train our own and because
Very good.
What we could do, because a lot of times they don't know this when you go out to recruit, to let them know, a lot of them have those student loans. And if you come to
say
work
that- you
for,
can
if
say
you
that
come to
again.
work for us, you can advertise. We do have schools that are Title I schools or whatever, and as long as you're working in that school, some of it can wipe out. And they say, oh, you can't, really? Yeah, that will work. A lot of times they don't know this.
Yeah, I didn't
So if
know
you
that.
put that on there, they say, we're going to White County because I can work in that school and some of my loan will be wiped out at the end of the year.
That's definitely true. Because I wouldn't go back to school. You can't, not to take more student loans. I'm good. I'm not.
Okay. No, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Elliott. Any more questions from anyone? Are you still going through?
I'm looking for the questions that I.
Oh, that you marked off.
That I
So we'll
marked
give you
off.
some time.
I'm just about done.
Anyone else have a question while Mr.
Yeah,
Pollock is looking?
I have one, and we spoke about it earlier. I want to go back to the school psychologist. We said we currently have 3 school psychologists now per White County. Are they child psychologists? What do they actually special in? Are they special-
Educational.
Educational?
They're licensed school psychologists,
Right.
so it's a separate licensure than you would find in a clinical setting.
Okay,
Right.
in the clinical setting. And we're looking to hire one more?
No, we actually just hired the third within the past 2 or 3 years. So we had 2 historically, but now we have picked up the
3.
third one.
So would it be feasible to have one for each district?
Not,
The way it's structured right now, so we have 9 schools. So each psychologist has 3 schools they're responsible for. Similarly, we have 3 coordinators, so the 2 partner together to
Okay.
provide guidance, compliance, and testing for those 3 schools that they work with.
And so, now this one said we are compliant right now.
Absolutely.
With our IEPs and 504s and
Yeah, we were one of the districts,
Yeah,
one of the few districts that maintain their timelines and testing. We are caught up.
And,
Or do you, while you're there, do you see in the future there's a need, do you think we may have an influx of students coming into the special needs program?
Absolutely.
Especially since the pandemic, because a lot of them are going to be coming in with those 504 plans that were
yeah.
not there before.
We've grown tremendously over the past few years.
Okay.
Not just those families that have moved into the division,
Uh-huh.
but also the need with regard to the kids who have been found eligible that are and have been, within our schools. So both things are impacting us right now, and we've been growing steadily.
And there's some will drop off too, right? Because as my kids will transition out of their IEPs when they go to middle school, so I guess that's a balance too, like some will come out of theirs.
One of the things that we do periodically, about every 3 to 4 months actually, is we take a look at who has withdrawn, who has been found not eligible, and then compare that to who's moved in and who has been found eligible. So we have the ability to see not just the increase, but who has dropped off. And so we're able to see overall what our gains are and how do we adjust for positions. But we are increasing steadily.
Okay, I just want to make sure, I know you did though, have it in this budget in case come July 1 again, that all of a sudden we get an influx of people moved here in Wight County.
That still can happen.
Yeah.
That absolutely still can happen. So we do the best we
You
can.
have a little emergency leeway in here, right?
We do the best we can to project out,
Okay.
but absolutely, we do get hit unexpectedly. And truthfully, 1 or 2 students can put a self-contained classroom over its capacity, and then that would
Right.
require a teacher. We
Another
never know
teacher.
what's going to happen. So we do try to maintain, a look at that in those classes periodically, but you never know what would throw us over at any point. So we try our best to give you guys the most accurate information, but we might have a situation where we will need a teacher in the future, so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And this is probably my last question, based on my notes, is I'm on the capital maintenance fund. It's page 1 of 1. And last year, we had $250,000. This year, we've got $250,000 budgeted. And it looks like we're gonna have probably a 10% inflation rate this year. Should that be adjusted upwards so that we build that capital fund and when we need it, it's there with the amount of money we would need?
So that historically, I think my first or second year here, about 6 years ago, was at 500,000, and it's really used for mostly things that are unexpected that come up.
Right.
And we actually, the county and us working together, lowered it based on historical trends and fixing it. We kept it the same because of the ESSER funds. And we do have a lot of ESSER funds now still in maintenance that are carrying into next year. So some of those things could be taken care of that. But I do think that is a conversation with the county to look at increasing that and also look at, I've known in the past, if we haven't used that whole 250, that money's still there and could be carried back into our budget. We have to ask for that. I think that is a good way to maintain it, and then maybe look year to year, did we roll over enough? Do we even need 250 this year, or now this year, do we need to replenish it and put 5, or, yeah, so I think that's a good point.
Yeah, and if we were able to keep rolling it over and we build it up enough, and we haven't used it, maybe it would be something to roll into when we decide we've got to build a new school. We've got several $1 million to start with that's already there, so we don't have to go to the citizens and say, we need, to raise taxes.
And I'll tell you, it's not a lot of money, and I'll give you for instance, where Todd's investigating a situation that just came up at Georgie Tyler Middle School, which is a relatively new school, and the chiller system. And the worst case scenario is a replacement of $225,000. That would wipe out that entire fund.
Yeah.
But I will say that one good thing, as we've worked with the Board of Supervisors and county administrators, when something like that happens, and we have gone to them, you know, we're not in control of that, and they've been able to they have reserve funds that they have to keep at the county, and they've worked with the schools. So that's been a blessing as we repair things.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect, thank you, sir.
Okay.
That was all my notes.
I do have a question on, food services fund,
Yeah. That's what mine.
one of one. I see under the, well, once everybody gets there, see under the proposed budget, are we getting, is the school system getting any money from, federal government? I mean, now I know, breakfast and lunch is free for all students. Is that gonna happen in 2023? Do we know yet?
We have not got guidance on that yet.
Oh, okay,
And
okay.
so, 2 years in a row, we've had to go back and adjust,
Yep.
because that blows up the revenue and the expenditures.
Mm-hmm.
So this budget goes back to historically what our trends are with students eating meals. But we do get federal dollars for the free or reduced.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And so that money are reimbursable meals, and we keep count, and that money flows back. So that revenue is in here,
Okay,
but not for every student.
okay, because I know, I think in the last school board meeting, someone was talking about, meals for, people who, I don't know if it was the last one or one of
That was
them.
last one.
Yeah, yeah, people, who don't have the means of getting food. And it's been great during the summer where they could come to the high school and different other locations and get boxes to last throughout the week or 2 weeks. So for planning purposes, that's why I was asking that question, you know, are they gonna be able to do that? Because, I mean, if they don't have the money, they're gonna have to go elsewhere.
And we do also have some summer feeding grants that before the pandemic, you could apply for. And a lot of it's driven though on your poverty levels, your free and reduced index.
Yeah.
Which ours is not that high compared. I know Mr. Wilson years ago asked us to investigate. I think Newport News went to feeding all their students, but their free and reduced was like 85%. So it wasn't a big increase to go ahead and feed everyone.
Yeah.
And so I think to look at, I think what Steve proposed, adjusting it, wasn't it like $2 million or $3 million? So if we feed all of ours, it's a $3 million increase. So back then, we investigated that because he wanted to know.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the difference. If you have a
Okay.
high free and reduced, it's not a huge jump to say, hey, why don't we just feed everyone? But for us, it's a huge increase that local dollars would have to pay for.
Well, can you use the CTE like in the summer or whatever, you
Yeah.
know, for them to provide at a lower
That's
cost?
a
I don't
10-month
know.
program.
Okay, so it's only for the 10.
But I mean, but you could.
I mean,
look-
we could
We
have
could
it
investigate
open.
things like that if they're willing to, and, yeah.
There's a church, and Miss Duck came to our town hall, and she was
Chapel
telling.
Grove.
Chapel Grove. She was explaining they had a program just with Georgie Tyler where they would make sure all the kids that needed food over the weekend had it, and they would try and give enough snacks for a whole week so that when they went home, mom is at work, they've got something to eat. I think outside of the budget, that's something that we could look at, is trying to assist her in partnering with other churches throughout the county to bring that program back, as long as it works with the superintendent, and hopefully get enough churches where we can have it in every school.
Those
They
chi-
actually
Yeah,
had,
they're partnered with the food bank. The churches are partnered with the
Several
food
Hampton
bank.
places,
Roads.
yeah.
Of Hampton Roads.
Yeah.
And so what the churches are doing, they used to come out to the schools before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so the protocol had already been established, but when the pandemic hit, they would stop doing that. So if we could probably lift those restrictions, that would come back.
Yes.
You know, because the program is still there in place, but it hasn't come back to the schools yet because
extremely
we're just
important.
going towards the endemic phase of the pandemic now. So that was a very good program. Chapel Grove was one of the churches. I have an aunt, Renetta Grant, that's also, she provides food to local schools and churches through the National Food Bank.
And we could reach out for that. We've had a variety of backpack programs where we pack the backpacks and they go home on the weekend.
Yep.
And so that's
And
been
we,
effective.
Alvin County, we used to do that. Oh, I know the first time I was on the board, they did the summer programs, and they provided meals for, and it wasn't just, it was in the communities, because I do know the communities in the vicinity, in the town area, and anyone could come out. They had locations where they could go, because I think was one West Side or something like that, and the other one, I think, was Wednesday Elementary, and the parents could come out and they pick up the package, and they used to do that before the pandemic. I don't know if it's still continuing, and then federal government and as well, I guess, Food Bank had something to do with that. I do have a question, but it's not in the proposed budget, but I think I'm going to answer my own question. The breakfast after the bell, is this with students and that cannot go out to get breakfast and they bring the breakfast to them? What is
Yeah.
that?
Now, that's just a program that when we apply for that, it allows us to put in for reimbursements from the Department of Agriculture.
Okay,
Similar
okay.
to the lunch reimbursements or the regular breakfast reimbursements. It's just another program defined by the federal government.
Okay, all right. See, I was thinking something else. Okay, all right, thank you. So, 'cause that's why you don't have it proposed for next year, because the federal government, they just did it 1 year. Got you.
Yeah.
Okay. That's it.
I'd like to go back to the broadband question that Ms. Tynes raised to our IT department. At events, since we recently started using when the pandemic hit, new technology from Verizon called the 5G technology, the mobile hotspots. And there's a grant, the name of that grant is the Federal Communications Grant, I believe, that pays families, that don't have broadband. If you have these devices from Verizon, they'll pay almost 30 to 70% of the broadband. So if are we utilizing that program, or are we providing like the 5G mobile devices in homes where it don't?
There's two programs that are active currently. There is one that is a personal level program that was if you reach certain levels of certain poverty levels, free and reduced levels. So all that information is being sent out by our food services when someone qualifies for free and reduced lunch.
Okay.
And the other one, so that is the personal level. The other one is division level. And you were able to submit requests for multiple different items. That's the Emergency Connectivity Fund.
Affordable Connectivity Program, I think
Yeah,
that's what.
there's two different ones, right?
Yeah.
So there's EBB and then the ECF, right?
Right,
The Emergency Broadband Benefit is the personal level one, so they have to do that on their own.
right.
The ECF we did apply for. We won a maximum award of just over $1 million.
Okay,
Currently, we're in certification phase for the first 600 and some odd thousand, 660,000 of that. And that is, we went for the device side because when we did a survey of our student population a while back, we found that a large chunk of our population that didn't have access to broadband didn't even have access to Verizon. So, for instance, if you drive past West Side and you take a right on Moonlight and you drive back in that area, about 200 yards back, cell service goes out. So there was no reason to invest in buying someone a hotspot when they didn't have something at their home if they had no cellular service at all. So we decided to go with we focused more on the device side of it than we did the connectivity side of it, and because we knew that the county was investing in the VATI grant. And so they've won that grant, and that's moving forward. So hopefully within a couple of years, we're going to get to that point where more people have access, but if there is no cell access, then there's no help I can give you.
yeah, and there was a grant that Verizon was offering at one point for landowners. If you had land that was not being utilized, a tower could be erected there. So
The county applied, that was when Anthony was here, right? So that was a while ago. They applied for that, and they had, I'm trying to remember, it was several years ago, but they had like a certain tower that someone could get over in Windsor Elementary, I think. And in like a 3-year period, nobody applied for putting anything on that tower. So that was the last I remember about it, and I'm looking at Susan because she was here at that time, and it's like, way a long time ago.
Yeah, I kind of remember that myself.
Okay.
'Cause my kid was in school.
So like
then.
he had done all the paperwork and he had signed everything, and if someone had gone on the tower, then the school division would get some money for rental, and
Exactly.
no one tried to get on the tower in like a 3-year period.
I think
so.
we should revisit that, you know, because those programs are still available.
Mhm.
You know, and especially in remote areas, we can get towers put at. Because now with this 5G technology available to us, those towers, I mean, they would eliminate a lot of our problems with dead spots in the county. You know,
Well, 5G is extremely limited range, but yeah,
but then we would fall under 4G, which would be help.
in theory.
You know, better than 1G is better than no G.
Very true.
You know, we just
Can-
want to get
can I make a phone call?
connectivity in their
Yes.
home.
I agree. Okay.
Do we anticipate, I know what we have here, as far as the health insurance, because we help self-health, so we pretty much control that. Because I've seen sometime we give the staff raises, and then all of a sudden, before we became self-insured, meaning the school system on their own, you give the staff the raise, and then they find out after they get the raise and sign their contracts, wham, bam, we throw this big insurance increase on them.
Right, so with this budget, there is no increase to the
Okay.
employee. And I'll tell you, we have done a very good job with the health insurance over the last 5 to 6 years. I think the employees only had an increase, was it 1 year? 1 year, which that's unheard of.
That's good.
And, because there's systems that are hit sometimes 20%.
That's
And
right.
you have to share that cost. So I think we've really done a good job with that self-fund and controlling costs. And if I can add, I do want to emphasize, Steve put in his PowerPoint, but I don't think the general public understands all the time, like the percentages. With the federal funds, we have $60-70 million budget. That size budget, to have a total increase over the 6-year period of 2.88% is unheard of. That's not per year.
It's just,
If you had a budget 2% per year, that's basically, and we showed you most of it is salaries. That's just your cost of living. We have held it to 2.8% over a 6-year period. That's wisely using your money. And if you guys have taken tours of the school to see how we've invested back in the infrastructure as well, we've done well with our money. But I do think John shared something with me about a zero-based budget. And I do think, if you look at the pandemic right now, what we've gone through, Steve was like, he's new, he's using historical data. When I came here 7 years ago, I did a zero-based budget the first 2 years and stripped down everything. I think that next year, with the turnover on the board and with the pandemic hitting, we were able to give $4 million back over the last 2 years to the county, but that was because of the pandemic. But I do think next year, a zero-based budget approach earlier, that would have to start much earlier in the process, would probably be the time. Because you do a zero-based budget, then you start using the historical data, it's probably time, and I know you mentioned that to
Yeah,
me.
and one thing I would say, I looked at the budget for 2017. From 2017 until today, our budget from the county, okay, so the money we're getting from the county, from the taxpayers, has increased by 2.884%. So it's even less than 3%. So that's, if we can keep doing that, this is gonna be great, because that's one of the concerns that, you know, different people had when they were talking to me about, are you going into the budget? And they were afraid that we were gonna raise taxes, you know, and, no tax raises coming from this department. This is just incredible. I've never heard of anything like this before.
I think we just about covered everything. Got questions from everything except for transportation. And you know where I'm going with transportation, Dr. Thornton. I think we have somebody, Mr. Christensen is supposed to be checking into that for me as far as, the electric buses. Because if we could get, for each one that we could get, it would save the county money, because might increase the electricity a little bit, but I found out electricity is much cheaper than the price of gas. And gas is going to be going up this year. It's not coming down, it's going to continue to go up. When I say gas, it's gas and,
Diesel.
for the bus and diesel, that's all of it. All of it is going up. So as soon as we can start looking in the future of acquiring electric buses, I think that would help us tremendously as far as with the budget for transportation.
And I think, Todd, you did say we were gonna apply next year in the window. There's a window.
There is, yes, for the grant that we were
Right.
speaking about.
And even if they turn us down, at least we can say we applied. I don't want us, because sometimes, you get that mind frame, well, every time we apply, they turn us down. I'm just gonna keep thinking that one year they're gonna say, oh, all of Wight County is persistent, let's give it to them.
And I do want to make sure we're clear, because I did do some research on that grant, and it is not unique to electric buses. So if we, after our research, determine, hey, that's the route we want to go,
Oh.
we can certainly push forward with that. But many of the districts are choosing to move towards propane with those funds. They've done their research and found that that's a more effective. So we'll just have to do the research for what's best for Isle of Wight County. But if we do say, hey, electric may or may not work right now, that doesn't mean we can't move forward with that grant, because there are other options for us to upgrade our fleet.
Right, if propane could be, probably was great for those school districts that did it years in the past, but propane is going up as well.
It is.
okay?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
That's going up just like everything else. That's why I said electric.
Yes, and then that grant does have the electric options as
Right.
well. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe you can share in the report at the next meeting, like how many diesel buses we have, how many propane buses we have currently.
And I don't,
And
when you say propane, how safe are those?
very,
They're very
See?
safe.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's,
Some-
we've been buying nothing but propane
Even if it's in
for
a
the last
traffic-
5 or 6 years.
Oh, yeah.
very clean energy.
I know it's clean
Very
energy,
good in
but,
traffic.
It's safe.
all right,
No, it is.
When we started buying those new buses, the bus drivers were fighting over it.
propane bus.
Nice and quiet.
Because they're
Yeah.
quiet.
Yeah.
They're going-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the electric buses are quiet as well.
Right, yeah.
And maybe we could have a mixture,
Yeah.
That would be
I
good,
do-
we have a mixture.
Right. I think a
Depends on,
mixture is
and
good.
depends on mileage, because we have some buses go way, put a lot of mileage, daily mileage on buses. And see, if it works there, whether propane is better or the electric is better. Because if you find a bus driver that they still take their buses home, they live out, right? Maybe they don't have the facilities to plug a bus in.
Yeah, I would like to see, Todd.
And that
the-
will cost
the-
extra too.
If we could get like the pros and cons of what we have right now, the propane and the electric, so we can really see what the benefits are to each and what the detractors are from each at an upcoming school board meeting. That would be phenomenal, because I am of the mindset that we need to have what is going to work. I don't want to see an electric bus out and stuck in Carsville because it's hit its max. But at the same time, I don't want to spend $6, $8 a gallon for fuel.
Yeah.
Yes, y'all are both hitting on excellent points, because the calculation goes beyond just what is most fuel efficient, energy efficient, because the infrastructure, especially up front, with adding on the electric component, is an additional cost. That is an option in the grant.
Yeah.
There's an infrastructure component, but it's an important factor for us to look into. And then there's also the mechanic side, which is a whole different, and so our mechanics are working with our bus reps and vendors to kind of get the pros and cons again of maintaining that fleet, because
Yeah,
that
that's
is
a
a
big-
whole
that's a
different
big-
factor we have
Yeah.
to take into account.
Life cycle support.
Yeah.
That's what the government calls it, life cycle support.
Yes,
It's
sir.
not just how much the vehicle costs initially, but how long you're gonna have that vehicle, how much
Right.
it's gonna cost
That's right.
for the upkeep.
Yes, sir.
That kind of stuff. Mileage is great, but you gotta look at the whole picture.
It's a bigger picture than that,
I
yes,
think
sir.
we should look at the hybrid buses too, because that will speak to the areas where they don't have the charges at. A hybrid bus would be good
Yeah.
because they charge themselves.
Yeah, I think we need to look into
yeah.
that as well, yes, sir.
That's why you want a number of different buses in the fleet,
Yeah.
and
Right.
just find
Yeah.
what's the best.
That's what I was,
Yeah.
we
If
just
hybrid
said
si-
that.
Yeah.
Being in a rural area, like John just said, Carsville, they don't have the facility to charge a bus, but a hybrid bus wouldn't have that problem. you know.
Where do they park their buses? Do they park any
Charge
buses at
itself.
Carsville Elementary?
Some of them park it at the school.
So if they park it at the
Depends where they
school,
live.
you
Yeah.
can have the electric plug-ins there. But if you, I'm talking about the people that actually park home because they live, it wouldn't be feasible for them to drive all the way to Carsville and then go all the way just to get the bus and drive all the way back. So just leave that bus at their home and just start picking up on their way. And that's the one I was talking about, because then we would have to have something in place for them to, actually charge the bus. In those cases, those individuals will probably do a fuel bus, because do what we normally do now. You fuel it up in the evening, and when you take your load, before you go back, you fuel it again. That's it.
You're absolutely correct, and we'll see what the research brings us, but my instinct tells me it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all.
Right, it's not,
Because
it's
this
not.
county's got too many components.
Because Isle of Wight County is a large mileage. We cover a lot of miles with our students every day. That was one of the reasons why we couldn't go years ago, and when we thought about, maybe leasing, working with a company that just does transportation, and we source out to them. We couldn't do that because we were going to be giving up too much. So Isle of Wight County in itself is very unique.
Yes.
Because of where we're located around all of these large Hampton Road cities, and then we are a moving county. And although we're not city, we're just like the cities, okay, in Hampton Roads. We have that mileage there, okay? That's what attracts a lot of people to Isle of Wight County.
Absolutely.
Because we have a lot to offer to be a county. I guess if you want to do a comparison, Isle of Wight County is like the counties in Northern Virginia, that's right out of Washington DC, those places, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Or the large cities, okay? So, but you only have that one county around Hampton Road, and we're the one.
So I look forward to bringing more information to you all so we can kind of figure out what the best decision is moving forward. But I think it's a conversation we've got to have.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen.
Absolutely.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
I'm getting better with your name. I keep wanting to say Christian, and I got to put sin on the end, okay? So that's why I pause, okay? All right, any more concerns from any members? Mr. Vise?
I'm good.
Ms. Dow?
I'm good.
Mr. Cunningham?
I hate
Mr.
to-
Collins?
I had to
Good.
bring
Okay.
this up, but we didn't discuss at all resource officers. Is that something that you
Oh,
want
that's
to
Oh,
see?
we discussed that at the
In the bu-
intense, at
In the
the,
budget?
In the
yeah.
budget, we didn't talk about it
Oh,
in
we
the
didn't talk
budget,
about it
though.
in the budget,
That
okay.
would change the local request.
Well, I was thinking you had discussed that with us the other day. You
I
had a
did,
plan
but it wasn't included in the budget.
in
And
case.
the costs are there. I wanted to get direction, like, if the board is leaning towards that direction. Because there has been, I'll just share some of the past conversations with, like, Mr. Keaton and different individuals in the county. There's some that are, they need it at the middle and high school. They started, probably over 20 years ago, was like the first grants for high schools. And they were developed not just for, they weren't developed for shootings.
Right.
They were developed to show cooperation between educating students, that the police are good. The police are your friends, and they were partners. And it was also good because sometimes at the high school level, there were fisticuffs and, yeah, teachers shouldn't be breaking up fights, or
Right.
administrators as well. We're not wrestlers, or,
That's right.
we do the best we can.
Right.
But so it helped. And then it
It's the one for the
proceeded over
resource.
time with school shootings that
Resource.
we need someone
We
there.
didn't give- Okay.
So in this county, the biggest talk was when they got pulled out of the elementary schools, was like Carsville's way down there.
Exactly.
And the sheriff, I can't respond down there.
That's
Right.
right, that's
And
right.
what are we gonna do in the meantime? And if it is a school shooting, which you hope would never happen, but if you do, seconds count.
Yeah.
The longer that individual is up, the more casualties there are. So it's that conversation. You hate to have that conversation. So is it worth paying that money to have them in your elementary schools, knowing they're not gonna be doing the same things? They're not gonna be breaking up fights. They're not gonna be doing any of that. But there are other things they could do. They could go into classes and resource classes and talk to kids about drugs, and different age-appropriate things as they go on. So there could be a need. And I've gone both ways through the years of my own thoughts on that. But really, the direction we need is from you, whether to put it in the budget or not.
I've always been a big proponent of SROs in school. And today, even more so, because of this anti-police movement we've got going around the country, it would help tremendously if the younger kids got to meet a police officer. They got to understand that, hey, this is a person I can trust. And so I think that is the most important aspect of having an SRO, especially in the younger grades. And you're absolutely right. Carsville, it'd be quicker for Suffolk or Franklin to respond to Carsville, which, you know, they've got their own issues to deal with. So I am 100% aligned with the thought that we need an SRO in every school.
I agree too, and not only that, I guess it's just the times we live in, and I don't want to blame everything on the pandemic. It was there before, but with the pandemic and when it came along, it gave young people an opportunity to, you know, have time to do some things that we as adults would say negative things in the community. And some of those things overflow into our instructional space during the daytime. And in doing so, I think, just like I agree with what Mr. Collick just said, in the beginning years, it's important to know that that resource officer that's going to be coming there with the uniform on is going to be a person we can go to. That's a safe person, you know, bring that positive image back into the community with the younger people. But starting on, and I guess some of you think, starting upper elementary, we do have activity in upper elementary with upper elementary students, right on through middle school and high school. And I know a lot of times you don't want to hear this word, but we do have gang activity in this county. Like I said, our Wight County is a moving county, and it's coming on board. And I'm not saying these people are moving, you know, it's moving into the county, but it's here, and it's been here for a while. And we need to be aware of this. And I think the more awareness that we are, we can stop it from coming from the community space, neighborhood, into our building. And I think with the presence in all of the building, they will know, you know, we're not going to have a whole lot of the things that they're bringing into the building now. Because a lot of our issues are coming from the neighborhoods. If we could take care of it there. I know that's not our problem. That's public safety's issue to get into the neighborhoods. But maybe we could start working with them and letting, you know, helping them, hey, this is the issue. This is what we're having. And if somebody can get over here and have a presence in this particular neighborhood, maybe it will not come over here to us during the instructional time. And this is the way we have to see it, and we have to work together. No longer can we be, not saying we did not work together, but no longer can we be educators over here, public safety people over here. It's gonna have to become where we become one and work together to save these children. I mean, we're losing too many children just for nothing. That's what I call it, nothing. We need things there where they can sit down. This is why it's important that we bring in mental health. A lot of times they don't know where to go. They act out because I got to be a man here, I got to be a woman here, and I got to show this. But if we had that counselor there that could help them through this, you know, if we save 5, we save that 5. Right now, the only agency that's benefiting is the funeral business, okay? They're the only people benefiting with this, what's going on in our county, in our communities, in Hampton Roads, in the nation. They're the only ones going to benefit. So we need to do something, and going forward, putting SROs in every building, I think we're gonna have to be there. This is a future. I know people are gonna say, elementary kids, no, but it's just like you said, it's awareness that these people are there to help us, okay? And going forward, and they're getting used to it, hopefully by the time they get upper elementary, middle school, and high school, they will no longer look at that person as being a negative person. This is a person I can go to and talk to that person like they are my safety counselor, okay? That person is here to keep me safe. I can go to that person and say, hey, this is the issue. Can you help me?
So, Madam Chair, we're going to take back the suggestions about resource officers, dean of students, the summer leadership program, some of the things we've heard, and cross those out and include them in the next round. Well, we update you in March, and then the 24th, you'll hear from the public. So maybe there'll be some other initiative that comes up that may drive interest, and if that comes, we'll look at that as well within the budget.
Perfect.
I had a question. If it did, you're looking at the 600,000 and it said it didn't include the health insurance premiums, but would it take away from something else, putting that in the budget?
Well, if we put it in right now, it would be an increase to the local request at this point. But it all depends on the local government. If they, say we ask for $600,000 more in local dollars, if they say, we're gonna level fund you, then we'd have to come back to the table and what would we cut? Would we cut the resource officers? Would we cut something else? It would be, what is the priority? And then we'd have to have that
But now the
discussion.
county is already paying so many resource officers.
They are paying for
Yeah,
four.
Four.
So
But we need,
four.
we're gonna
we
need
could cut
9.
that
So we're
price in half,
adding,
Yeah.
really.
Right, but we would add that to our budget.
we're adding
And
5
then
too.
see, and I did have, I do want to check with PAC, our attorney as well, with doing this and the proper way to do it. I know we've talked about housing in our budget to purchase. I just want to make sure we're doing it right, and we have that conversation with the sheriff and the county, and if we go that route, we can fund it here.
Okay.
Because we also, we have to report to the state by those
Yep.
categories.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know if that changes that. So we need to do a little research of where that's housed.
Okay.
Do you know if, Dr. Thorne, do you know if any state money is available for SROs? I mean, because if we can get some federal or state funding to help with this.
Yes.
I do think grants are out there again that we can apply for. I
Yeah.
believe.
This-
Do you guys
No
know?
permanent
or-
funding there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I do think it cycles through, and
Yeah.
I think it is out there, but we'll look that up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone? Mrs. Elliott?
Oh, yes. This came after the budget presentation, a
Okay.
request from bus drivers to include in the budget.
Sorry, I thought you were done.
Sorry.
Currently, our regulation for absences and leave says that employees who work, basically our bus drivers, cafeteria workers, and our part-time IAs, they earn 4 days of sick leave per year. So in particular with our bus drivers, the question has come up, they earn 4 days per year, but then we cap them every year. They can carry no more than 25 days per year. So it's discouraging for some of the drivers because they know they're going to lose leave, so why not take it?
Take it.
And so we're thinking that if we don't put a cap, we don't cap any of our other employees except for that one classification. If we don't cap the leave, maybe it would encourage them to not take the leave because it is a retirement benefit that you do get paid out for a certain amount of sick leave. So it might just entice people to take less leave. So we just wanted to bring that to your attention.
So we need to, is that something we need to act on at the next meeting or something?
No, we could include it in the budget.
Oh, I would suggest we include that because trying to secure bus drivers is just like trying to secure instructional staff.
Yes, ma'am.
And that will include everyone, the IAs, bus drivers and cafeteria workers.
It's part-time IAs, our kindergarten IAs. They're not eligible for retirement benefits, so it's not a benefit for them
Right.
when they leave.
But they
But we
can
could not
accumulate
cap
here.
their leave because it does, if you know you're going to lose it, generally you're
Right.
going to
And not
take it.
only that,
Right.
it is, I think it would be fair because, I mean, how can you put a restriction on someone's illness? And we all just found that out. in the last couple of years, okay? I mean, someone may have to go out and have an emergency surgery. And if they only have 4 days, they can accumulate. And they just got here with us, just say they've only been with us for 2 years. And they can only accumulate that's 8 days. But they have to be out 16. So, you know,
Yep.
and they're already not getting the top pay anyway, so, yeah. I think there should be in this, we should include that.
And Ms. Elliott, is this in any of our policies
It
or
is
regulations?
it's a regulation,
It's a
so it's a local,
regulation.
that we'd have
That's
to just
something
change
that
our
Dr.
local
Thornton can take
regulation.
care
We
of
can
then.
change it,
Yeah, we can change it.
And it would not be a significant increase. You wouldn't really see it because they'd probably be taking, we're thinking less leave, and where the increase would be is on the way out.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
you know
I'm
what,
good
when
with that. I
people
think it's-
dedicate many years to you, that's a
Yeah, I
good thing.
think it's the right thing to do.
So they, let me get this straight.
Yes, ma'am.
At the end of the month, I know they're considered part-time, some of them because of the hours they work a day, right? But I call them all full-time because there's a need for their position. And if they're there, they're working full-time, okay? Because you're working with youth. How much, I know with the instructional staff, they get like a day and a half per pay period. Is that still
Yes.
true?
That's correct, yes.
Is that for the group you just told us about?
No, they get 4 days per year. Everyone else earns a day and a half. And then we do front load the leave, so everybody gets their leave up front in
We
July.
increase
but-
the days to 5 at least a year?
We can look at
Or
that.
by hour.
And each category is a little different.
I know their
so-
category is a little different, but they got 4 now. Why just one more day, okay? That's helpful. We should make it 5 a year, you know? If we can work it out, if we can work it in this budget, okay? And if we can't do it in this budget, think about going forward, trying to get that extra day in there for them.
We can look at that.
Yeah,
But I do want to point out, every category is different, and not
I
just
know.
leave. Like bus drivers also get an incentive for attendance,
okay.
where other employees don't get that. So each category is
Well, if-
unique to what,
Well, look at the
Values,
categories, because
yeah.
you all have that.
Yeah.
And the people that maybe not getting the incentive that the transportation department is getting, and they're working in the instructional department, maybe we can look at to them getting that extra a day, because transportation is already getting an incentive, extra incentive, where they're not getting it at all. So maybe they could get the extra day per year.
We'll look at that. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Any more concerns about the 2022-23 budget as it is presented to us? Well, we have some other times, if some other questions come up, we'll be there, of course, for the public hearing, so we can bring it up during that time, although that is the time for the public, okay? So we don't want to take their time from them, but at the end of, once they all come up, and at the end, if you all come back with some other concerns, you can bring it then, okay?
Thank you.
If nothing else come before us at this time,